Hey everyone, welcome to Ben Garza Studios. Okay, so in this episode we're just going to give you a quick little insight on how to learn from art books. And you're probably thinking, I don't really like to read the art books. Sometimes they use the terms that are a little bit boring. Sometimes it's just like, it's not as fun as just getting right into the core of painting. And I totally agree with that. And I think that your instincts to just do and start making art are excellent. You should have a lot of fun and just go for it. And that's a great way to start, like I said. But at a certain point, you're going to find yourself really questioning, is your art valid? Do you like it? Why was it fun yesterday? What's really going on? How am I ever going to move to the next level? And at that point, you'll probably start to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I should go take a look at some books. How do I do that? I know a lot of teachers in your art classes or art history will, give you reading assignments. Well, reading isn't exactly easy for everyone. So here are just some tips on how to get into an art book without being, I guess, kind of overwhelmed or intimidated by having to do a lot of reading. Because what I find will happen is if you find something that's interesting, you're going to want to try and investigate what it's about. And in that way, it'll give you some context. So what I mean by that is I got this book at a used library store, right? It's a book about Delacroix. I came across a Delacroix painting years ago at the Louvre, and I was really moved and blown away. Since then, I've done a lot of research and a lot of studying, and there's just so many things that come from Delacroix. I want to show you this painting first, just to show you and give you an idea, really, of his style. Now this painting is massive. When I say massive, probably about the size of a bus, really. Now, when you first start thinking like, oh, I really like this artist, I like the way they paint, I want to do a copy of that. You're going to find, whoa, that's a big challenge. How do I do that? Can I do that? Well, you may try, you might fail, you might succeed, you might be happy, it might take you a long time, but ultimately you're getting the inspiration from the book and the ideas. Now, one thing that I really took away from Delacroix's paintings is how he used color to express emotion. So he used a lot of the color red in this painting. This painting is called The Death of Sardanapalus. And basically it's like, just to give you a short story, it's a story of a king where his kingdom is being overthrown, and so the new conqueror is slaughtering all of his people because he would rather let them all die than to give up his power. Well, that's pretty moving. But there's no blood in the painting. So what I took away from that really is how Delacroix was using color, right? You don't have to read the books in their entirety, but by gravitating towards the painting and trying to do a copy and then investigating what it was about, how he did it, what his life was a little bit like, I found this little pathway which opened up my mind into my paintings as far as using color as a form of expression. Now that's just very quickly how you can use a book or an artist like this that's maybe way beyond your level. I mean, Delacroix, way beyond my level, to find insight into your paintings, right? So another thing is inside these books, they'll give you little descriptions of what type of medium the artist is using, right? So if you're painting in acrylic and these artists are working in oils, it's going to be a hit or miss because the medium will get you there only so far. And then that's pretty much where it stops. So working in oils for this particular painting may get you a little closer to your end result and being satisfied with your final product of your copy, and give you a little bit more, a better experience while learning from copying the painting. So another thing is to understand when doing these copies is the natural ability of other artists. Okay, what I mean by that is, like an athlete, let's say you're at a certain age, say you're, 25, and you want to be a professional football player. Well, you might look at a whoever your favorite football player is, and train really hard. And then at a certain point you realize, well, that was kind of their natural ability. And we see that a lot in sports. We see that in a lot of the arts. You may even see that in acting, right? But my point is, at a certain point, you have a natural ability. And that's not to say that you can't get there. That just might mean that you have to invest more time to get there. Okay? And then lastly, I would like to say, when you're doing these copies, at the end of the copy, you really have to evaluate how you feel. Did it really get you there? Are you satisfied with all the work that you put in? Was this something that felt like an inner experience that you expressed on the canvas? Or are you dissatisfied? So at that point, you have to kind of evaluate, do you want to continue setting your expectations so high in trying to better yourself, or maybe is it a good time to go investigate other artists? Okay, and I think all along those ways you'll find what is your style. You'll begin to develop a style in that way. Okay, so that was just a little insight on how I used the Delacroix book, right? So now let's take a look at another artist. This is Toulouse-Lautrec. Okay. Now in these, well, let me find the page first. Okay. So in these works, by copying these works, it also gave me an insight to how Toulouse would draw, right? Because a lot of his paintings are drawings. So I did a copy of this, which I think you saw on my Instagram or TikTok if you follow. It's a portrait of Henri P. And this is in the Louvre. And really, with this painting, there's not a lot of detail as far as like what the painting is about in the book. But it does give me a good idea of where Lautrec's mind was and what his society was like around the time that he was making these works. And that really helped to influence my work in a way, thinking of, wow, if he was documenting what he was going through at that time, how can I take that idea and put that into my artwork to just add an extra layer of depth and to be able to wake up the next day from a piece that I've painted and feel like I'm truly connecting with that from the inside. It's just little ideas, constantly feeding yourself little ideas. Then, with books like this, I stumbled onto paintings, or sketch paintings really, such as these. And I thought, wow, I'd like to do a copy of that. And all the while you're trying to achieve these copies, you really have to open your mind and give yourself a lot of leeway. If your expectation is high, which means you're trying to make a replica, more than likely at an intermediate level, beginner level, I would say even a professional level, there's going to be a lot of roadblocks along the way. The more you do it, the better you get, of course. But I would say at a beginner intermediate level, just be very generous with yourself. Have fun with this. If you're going to do copies, and your goal is to, open up your mind and try and take that next step as a painter, you don't have to do an exact replica. And in fact, you don't have to do one. I would suggest doing 3. One that you try really hard at. A second one where you try and, kind of modify where you feel you went wrong in the first one, whether it's the drawing or the color. And then a third one, which is an interpretation all of your own, trying to just use this as source material. In that way, it'll give you a good idea of really what is your own and how you can begin to make your own art and get not closer, but begin to develop your own style. And again, I did another copy of this painting here. And yeah, I'm not too hard on myself, I really just go for, well, first of all, looking at the drawing itself, the composition, that's another thing that you can learn from just doing these copies. or just looking at the color scheme. You don't even have to do a copy. You can just look at the colors that he's used here. I mean, this ultramarine blue here next to this like really warm yellows and orange, along with this really beautiful viridian in the background and blue. You know, the gray tones in her hair, the softness and greens in her cheek. All of these things really add to your beliefs and your confidence behind your brushstrokes, behind your color choices. Yeah, so now moving from Lautrec, and both of these books were about painting, which I said in the beginning is a really good jumping off point. If you want to just paint, I say just go for it. You know, learning by doing is the best thing that you can do for yourself. Learning by playing with paint, learning by just having fun is the best possible way that you can learn to paint. Now, a lot of people might not agree with that. They maybe would say that there's a lot more to it than just that, but I'm talking about just getting off the ground, and maybe just keeping that a part of your practice. I keep play a part of my practice every time I paint, and it makes it that much more enjoyable. So now let's turn our attention to this other book here. This is Drawing the Personal View. Okay, I have a hard time with drawing books. I have a hard time with how-to books. I've never had good experience with a how-to book. If you're like me and you pick up the drawing books and it's, you know, let's say an anatomy drawing book, and the page is filled with, to draw a head, draw 50 circles. Draw a triangle underneath. Divide that into 3. To draw a human body, that should be 7.5 heads. Those type of practices for me, yes, I do think it's good for you to understand them, but at the same time, it can be kind of a downer, right? Because you're more or less practicing something instead of creating something. Now, there is a time for practice and there is a time for creating. I will give you that. But for me, those type of books that lay out their methods in that way, I never really get much from them other than, okay, this just looks like a lot of busy work, right? Even when I have tried it, I find myself not connecting in that way. So for me, this book really is more a philosophy on drawing, and it's a philosophy that I really identify with. And I wanted to share just a few things with you, because if you're in this same scenario, a book like this can really open you up. Let me just find my little piece here. Okay, so I'm just going to read a little passage here and give you an insight to what's going on here. Imitation is, after all, the most natural way of learning. The old master apprentice studio system embodies the concept of learning by imitation, in an effort to make themselves feel more useful and to make the students feel more involved. Some teachers have adopted a dogmatic approach to drawing, which demands total loyalty from the student towards a particular style or method. These same teachers sometimes find it necessary to define what art is before the students are allowed to begin drawing. Right? Wow. That's pretty impactful. That was kind of my impression and the way I felt for all of my drawing classes. I mean, luckily, I had 2 really great drawing classes that I did not experience too much of this, but this was my idea going into it, right? So if your idea of learning how to draw is going to a class and having the teacher tell you or guide you on how to, let's say, draw an eye, right? You do the circle, you do a leaf shape, there's a line on top, there's a bevel on the bottom, the eyebrow is X, Y, whatever. Okay, that type of drawing class, maybe that's what you're expecting, but that is kind of like a hierarchy where the teacher is telling you how you're going to be an artist before you're an artist. That's very liberating in a book like this because it really frees up you as the artist for drawing, right? Now, again, there are things that you can learn from all of those academic learnings, and I suggest that you look into those. But if that doesn't work for you, this is just an alternative to learn from drawing books, that not all drawing books are X, Y, Z, and that's it, right? This is why I really love this book, is because it does not guide you in a 1, 2, 3 step process. It gives you more or less a philosophy to work from. And the other thing too is that this book really talks about drawing from observation and direct observation, not drawing from pictures or drawing from books or photographs, high quality photographs, none of that. This is drawing from direct observation, which I completely agree with. I think it's very crucial to draw or sketch from direct observation. Your eye can see so much more than a picture, than a camera. Now, some of us just want to draw things that we're not close to, right? So yeah, if you want to draw the Eiffel Tower and you live in California and you're not ever going to go to Paris, okay, fine. Yeah, you're going to have to do it that way, right? But there are other things around you that you can draw. Basically, any object in your house or where you live can be an art subject. So that being said, let me just read one more thing. Speaking of observation, here's a little passage. It says, when one is working intensely from observation, things no longer appear to be static. They're seemingly in constant movement. Wow, that's pretty crazy, right? To think when you're working from direct observation that things are in constant movement. Why is that? Well, it's because the subtle move in your eye, looking up, looking down, any movement that you may have, yes, it's going to alter that movement. It's going to create movement. So how can we, capture something like that? What will that lead us to? Well, in the next couple of sentences, it says, the contour escapes me, Cezanne complained. And that is why his drawings have tentative, sometimes multiple contours which suggest vibrancy. Wow. If you saw one of my other videos, I recently went to Cezanne's drawings. They have an exhibition right now at the MoMA. And yes, that's what you find in his drawings, multiple contours. And there is a sense of movement, there is a sense of motion. I just want to share with you some examples here of what that could be like. So in your drawings or in your sketching, look at these. These are beautiful works. And these are not works that you spend weeks on. These are things that you learn to grow from as a draftsman, right? Because you can get at and you can connect with the emotion in this way. So this is what these type of books have really provided me with, is first of all, I'm getting a chance to observe other drawings, other works. Now, speaking of observing other works and other drawings, this is where a book like this of Cezanne's drawings really comes into play. When you start to look at, trying to find you a really good one. Let's take an example of this. When you start to really look at a master painter like Cezanne, how does he approach drawing? Multiple contour lines. Wow, that really blew me away, right? It's not just one contour line, and then we do a bunch of shading, and then you're disappointed because the proportions are wrong or the lighting is weird, and you've erased 500 times, and your paper is starting to look terrible. In this way, learning from these books, and I'm not reading every single part of this book, right? What I'm doing is I'm using the book to kind of open up my mind, Like, for example, if you wanted to write music, what would be the best thing for you to do? Listen to a lot of music, right? It's just something that we kind of forget when we start painting. We just want to paint, we like a certain artist, we stick with them, we want to copy what they do, we set our expectation high, or we see a drawing, we look at comic books, we think, I want to do that, I want to make a hyper-realistic drawing, and then you don't, and you get disappointed and bogged down, and someone says like, oh, why don't you just go get some art books and learn how to draw or paint like that? And you think, how am I supposed to do that? It's such an easy statement, and that's why I really wanted to just give you a little bit of insight on how I use these books to help me paint, help me draw, and how you can use art books to really, really grow as an artist or a painter. Yeah, let me see if there's anything else in here that I did some Now, let's take for example this. Whoa. What an amazing drawing. And this is at the exhibition. It is life size. I mean, it is huge. And you look at that compared to these, and you think, well, what happened? Did he just kind of give up on like drawing or painting? What's his deal? He kind of just... No, he grew and grew and learned and developed his own style, and he took in a bunch of different, a bunch of different ideas, and he came to his own conclusions. And you can do the same by using books or using YouTube videos. There are thousands, hundreds of documentaries out there that you can watch. You don't even really have to read much these days. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have to read. I think it's important to read. It really gives you a different connectivity with the book. You're going to find that it's easier to kind of highlight. You saw the way I annotated in some of these books. I just drew all over everything. Speaking of that, I think there was one more idea. Okay. So I wrote this here on the side of the book, on the side of a painting here. If you can see, I love writing in my books because it's kind of like I don't need an extra page for notes. I can just write my notes on the book. Anyway, so I copied this out of the paragraph previous. It says, totality or summation of each part in relation to each other with a way to suggest that it is capable of movement, right? So take in the whole, the figure, not one part. How do you combine the drawing in a totality? Man, that's heavy, right? And that's a hard thing to do. So there's another idea that came out of this book, and it doesn't even show me how to draw X, Y, Z, a head, a toe, hands, all those things. Okay, it doesn't show any of that. But what it can do is give you just that little bit of insight that you can take to your next piece. And I'm guaranteeing you're going to have success. You're going to see yourself grow. I know I have. And a lot of other people around me that choose to use books like this, they have the same success. So, let me know what you think about that. Of course, there are hundreds of other books that I could go through. I think I might just maybe do maybe once a month video on the books that I'm reading, just to kind of give you some insight on how I use these, because I think that's just as beneficial as the demonstrations that I do on this channel. So let me know what books you've read, what books changed your mind, what books have really changed your art. And yeah, I'd love to check it out and get a conversation going and dive into some new books. Even if there are books out there that are how to draw, whatever, that really work for you, let me know. I say I haven't found one to this day, but it might just be you that lets me know and turns me on to something that will actually take myself to the next level. And yeah, that's it. What more can I say? Thanks so much for listening to me. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to see some of the other works that I don't post on the YouTube channel, you can follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Ben Garza Studios. And that's it. All right, so I'll catch you in next week's video. I'm working on a triptych right now, and it's a very large painting. So I'm going to work on that editing all week, and I'll get that to you next Tuesday. And that's it. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, have a good rest of your week.